What's the most NSFW thing you've seen happen in a school environment? A guy did a poo in the microwave and set it on high for 2 hours. I'll provide more info. The guy did it because he was angry at a girl. They were at a nightclub, she took his hand and said, "Can you walk me home?" Well, you know what he was thinking. He walked her home to her school hostel and it took about half an hour. When they arrived at her dorm, she turned around, said thanks, and closed and locked the door, leaving him in the corridor. I don't support what happens next. The guy was upset, so he walked to the common area, took a plate out the microwave, took a dump on it, put it back in the microwave, and set it on high for max time. I heard 2 hours, and walked back to his school. Apparently, the smell was locked in the microwave, so when a different girl woke up to heat some oats and opened the door, she was attacked by a wall of stench. The building was evacuated, but I doubt they got the smell out. Not the typical NSFW, but messed up all the same. This kid who used to sit with us at lunch, Josh, was a self-proclaimed Satanist and was all about blood, violence, death, etc. A friggin' weirdo. Anyhow, one day there was a fight at the table next to us. Some kid gets punched in the nose, bleeding everywhere. Teachers shuffle both kids off to the principal. Before the janitor can come and clean up the blood that had dripped on the table and seats, Josh dipped his finger into the blood, popped it in his mouth, and licked it all off. Did it 2 or 3 more times before he stopped and looked at me with the biggest shit-eating grin. It was pretty mental. I'm 40 and still tell this story. In high school at lunch one day, everyone was standing around in the halls waiting for the bell. There was a commotion near the boys' bathroom and a line forming. It literally looked like an organized thing where people were going in single file, then coming out, freaking out, laughing, etc. So I waited in line and went in. The only way I can describe it is that someone shit out a 2-liter bottle-sized shit and it was literally sticking up past the toilet seat in the bowl. Someone must have died that day. This is kind of a weird one, but in 7th grade, I was friends with a girl who had a very serious porn addiction. This was before smartphones, but she would carry around folded up pictures cut from magazines too, mostly women, but some men, in her bag to look at and, I assume, try to get off to anytime she was alone, which was usually in the bathroom stall. It was the same way when I was at her house, except she would just take breaks every now and then to literally just walk into the closet and shut the door. It was very bizarre in retrospect, but in 7th grade, you don't really have a baseline for well-adjusted behavior, so honestly, I didn't think anything about it. Here is a story for you. Grade 10 history class, the last day before winter break. Since it's the last day, we were just watching movies as a class, some Bugs Bunny World War II propaganda films or something. The teacher is just sitting at her desk, not really doing anything. Our desks are sort of arranged in a U, and I'm sitting on one of the corners. There is a very skinny white boy named Rudolph. Obviously not his real name, and a fat, sassy black girl named Dasher, also not a real name, right next to him. Rudolph had a lot of problems in his home life and came to school plastered a few times and was generally weird, and I don't think these two got on very well. Rudolph decided that they should play the Are You Nervous game. For those who don't know, that's when you slide your hand up someone's thigh until that person gets nervous and loses. So Rudolph goes first, and I'm kinda half watching the movie, and Dasher stops before he gets too close to her V. Then Dasher goes, and Rudolph kinda whispers, "You're literally going to have to touch my balls before I say it." I expected the game to end there, her calling him a perv or something, but no. She unzips his pants while nervously looking at the teacher. I immediately text my friends in class to look at this shit, and now 4 of us are watching. She then very evidently starts giving Rudolph a manual meat massage for 2 minutes, before pulling her hand out and wiping it on his pants. Nobody ever said anything. They never really talked again. Nada. We had a teacher who was not safe for work. He was an 80-year-old ethics teacher, still at least 6 feet tall despite serious hunching. He would curse, fart, and scratch his balls to the horror of the nerdy girls who sat in the front row. When it was time for roll call, he would just throw his folder at a girl and tell her to do the roll call for him. Emphasis on throw. He also made all sorts of weird jokes, like when teaching us about norms, he was joking, "Well, Norma is a prostitute I met in Mazatlan." Oh, works a little better in Spanish. Every week in junior school, we would have an assembly and one class would have to put it on. It was our turn, and we had an autistic boy in our class. I forget what he was supposed to do since this was the 2nd grade. He walked up to the microphone with a big smile on his face and was about to speak to the entire school. Teachers, some parents, and every student there. Instead of talking, he immediately dropped his pants and started spanking it. Everyone was pretty stunned, but when his special needs educator tried to take him off stage, he resisted like crazy, all while still choking the chicken. I don't think anything else in my school career tops that. At school, my first year of high school actually, some guys in senior year decided it would be fun to leave a banana peel in the microwave for a whole hour in full power as soon as lunch break was over. They left the banana getting irradiated and left. Skip about 30 minutes. I'm having class, and the school director knocks on the classroom door and says in an angry tone, "Everyone out into the hallway. There has been a serious problem." We go out and sit on the hallway, shitting our pants in fear as more and more people from other classes arrive and sit with us. Once every student of the high school is on the hallway, the director says, "Okay, I assume no one will give names, but who put the banana peel in the microwave? The microwave caught fire and melted a pile of chairs." Not surprisingly, everyone was struggling hard to keep their shit together as a microwave had been ignited with a banana peel. The surprising part was that as soon as he asked who did it, a guy stood up and went like, "I did it." The director asked, "Did you do it alone?" To which another 4 students stood up and said, "Nope, we were with him." They all got suspended, and we couldn't use the dining room for about 2 days since the smell of burnt plastic wouldn't go away. Luckily, the place didn't catch on fire. Back in junior high school, a bunch of girls played a game called Tag the Vag. It was just like normal tag, you're it, but instead of tapping somewhere on the body, like the back, shoulders, etc., you would just touch one particular place. For all those wondering, it was in fact pronounced so that vag would rhyme with tag, i.e. tag the vag. No one really questioned it. Funny thing is, when my year level graduated, our English scores were so shit that the school implemented an extra compulsory after-school English class every Thursday next year. Makes sense. I will say that I am oblivious to signals from women. So there was a girl in my 11th grade science class that sat next to me and we used to talk all the time. She even came over to get help with schoolwork and was touchy-feely. And I was always like, what is wrong with you? Again, very oblivious and shitty self-esteem. One day during winter in class, she and I were talking and she said that she got her clit pierced. I was like, no the fuck you didn't. Why would you lie so much? She then proceeded to unbutton and unzip her pants and shove my very cold hands down her pants. Yep, she pierced it, but she also screamed and stood up with my hands down her pants. The whole class saw and I was bright red. I was super embarrassed and got sent to the principal's office, but I felt a pussy, so win. My high school was notorious for stabbings. BHS just outside of Chicago. But the most sexually not safe for work thing that happened, there was a dude who filmed his girlfriend giving him a blowjob in the men's locker room showers. Okay, pretty normal, except for the fact that he sent a 10-minute video of it to 2 of his buddies, and one sent it to another, and another, and another. The video spread like wildfire through the school. Both got suspended, dude got expelled, and convicted of distributing child pornography. When the girl came back, she was made fun of, not just because she was caught sucking a dick, but because it was literally 3 inches max. They were both seniors in high school. A substitute teacher got fired for taking pictures of kids. In one of my classes, I had him as a sub for a few days, and I remember the first day he taught us, he made each of us get up and stand with our back facing the door of the room. He'd take a picture, and we'd sit back down. I didn't think about this till years later. Someone that I went to school with brought it up, and I asked my mom if she remembered, and she did. She told me she had got a call and letter from the school asking if I had said anything to her about that sub, or was interested in talking to the police. The usual hand jobs, blow jobs, drug dealing, but those aren't that bad. We were hanging out in the gym before classes started, and in walked a kid who recently dropped out when his sister was killed. I said hey, and he kept walking like no one else was there. He walked over to a well-known moron and shoves a hidden blade into his gut and wrenches it up till his ribcage stopped the steel. He tossed the knife into a nearby trash can and walked out. The knifer got caught, and the knifey lived. Apparently, the knifey had been making fun of the knifer's dead sister. Knifer heard about it and came in to stab the knifey. I wasn't there for it, but at my high school, there was a very infamous senior prank that happened. Basically, a student hit a deer or found a dead deer somewhere out on the road or something. 3 to 4 more students took that dead deer into the school cafeteria on the weekend while a school play was happening and put it in the ceiling above the cafeteria. A few days later, a teacher felt something dripping on them and I guess saw the blood dripping from the dead deer. School was closed down for 3 days, I think by the CDC, to clean up the mess. The high school I went to was a 5-building campus. I remember hearing about a girl giving a dude head in one of the stairwells and how a teacher caught them. Later that day, I heard rumors that it was a girl I knew, who is also very girl next door straight A student type, but I didn't believe it. I just came right out and told her what people were saying, and she got red in the face and kind of laughed it off. That's when I realized that I had actually seen them in that stairwell. It wasn't a highly populated portion of the building it was in. On that same day, probably right before she started to go down on him, they were literally going at it between the times that classes changed over. My wrestling locker room. Just everything. We had a game called Galaxy. In the showers, we had a long hallway of slippery tile before the entrance. We would pour a ton of soap down the hallway and run it and slide it like a slip and slide. The swirls and bubbles made it look like a galaxy. Also, not as not safe for work, but sleep trains were a huge thing. I miss those. For those who didn't read my comment below about sleep trains, a large group of us lay down on the mat. Head on top of belly, head on top of belly, head on top of belly, in no particular order or line, just a weave of guys using each other as a pillow. We had a bathroom in our high school that didn't have any cameras pointing at it, so plenty of students went there to smoke cigs and pot, but there was this one girl who took advantage in other ways. Here I am minding my business trying to smoke a joint in peace when she comes into the bathroom, and so does a couple of guys, and she just starts blowing all of them. Then it leads to them fucking, and at this point, I was down to the roach. I just flushed it and left. There was said to be a video that floated around, and I hoped I wasn't just this weird guy in the background smoking a joint while this girl has a train ran on her. The school caught wind about the whole incident, and the bathroom was closed down. Saddest day of my life. So at lunchtime in the courtyard at my high school, seagulls would show up every day to scavenge. Some kids would throw them food too. Well, this one kid used to like to scare them off and throw stuff at them, never intended to really hit them. Then one day he did. He chucked a Gatorade bottle that still had about 1/4 of the liquid still in it. It clocked a seagull in the head and knocked one of its eyes out of its socket. It was bleeding profusely. This kid nearly got his ass beat by about 30 people. Took like 5 teachers to break up the situation. He got expelled in the end. Seagull died, I think. They called animal control or something, but I think too much damage was done to save the poor thing. Not sure how not safe for work this is, but I work in an elementary school district, and we have a code word for the most disgusting thing I've ever seen. We call it lollipopping. All the lab computers have headsets for kids to listen to lessons or whatever, and they all have the wired mic attached to them. The kids like to suck on the mics for whatever reason, just like a lollipop, hence the name. I've watched one class come in, suck on the mics for 45 minutes, leave them soaking wet, they leave, and the next class comes in and does the same damn thing. Kid pops a wet mic in his mouth and sucks on it all class period. Ugh, almost made me puke. The 4 stories that were the talk of the school for me for a long time were: 1. A kid in high school pooped on the floor in our library for a $20 bet. He won, but was also suspended for a week, and then another week of in-school suspension. 2. A girl and guy in high school got expelled for having sex in the bathroom during class time, and when they were caught, had drugs on them. 3. 2 teachers apparently had sex on an out-of-state field trip with students and were later fired. 4. Teacher fired and arrested for apparently hooking up with a 15-year-old student. Bonus story, but not from my school. Heard about it in the newspapers and from friends. A kid took a ketchup bottle from the lunchroom and took it into the bathroom, did his thing into it, went and put the bottle back for others to use. Pretty sure he was expelled and arrested on some very serious charges. It wasn't a ketchup bottle, it was a ranch salad dressing bottle. Again, heard this in the news over a decade ago and had already graduated from my high school by then. A different one. Alright, after reading this thread, I have come to the conclusion my high school was wild as fuck. Do you want to discuss the girl begging to get tased, officer gives her a quick zap, parents get mad, like, why did you tase my daughter because she asked? That's dumb. Officer gets let go. Better story. End of the school day. People running into bathroom, coming out laughing, screaming some, oh my god, what the fuck, LMAO type shit. Teacher runs into the bathroom. Discovers one girl fucking 4 dudes in the middle of the bathroom. Boys run out, never get caught. Girl drenched in cum goes to the office. Huge cunt of a professor in a 100-level course with stadium seating. Tons of people, mostly looking for a blow-off course, and this guy is so fucking hardcore and yelling for minutes straight if he thinks he caught one of the 100-plus students not engrossed. Finals day comes. Mid-exam, from down at the bottom of the room, 4 dudes burst in naked and are jumping around, waving their dicks, and causing the best kind of ruckus. Haven't been so happy to see flailing dicks since Cersei's Walk of Shame. Anyway, the plan was clearly to romp around and run up the staircased aisles, to the top and out those doors. Turns out, hard-ass cunt professor was kind of a badass. I hadn't noticed how ripped this fucker was till that moment. He sprints up an aisle and tackles one of the cockier, pun intended, laggards. This was a full-on NFL form tackle on stairs. He then pinned this kid down and basically got in a dominant doggy-style pose on him and said something like, I got you, you little fuck, and when security comes, you'll rat out the others. Then he looks over his shoulder and scans the room. He looks fucking astonished that people are watching the scene unfold instead of diligently taking the exam. What are you all doing? Get back to it. No extra time. My entire high school was outside sitting in the bleachers of our football stadium because of a bomb threat. Well, we were out there for quite some time, so naturally, high schoolers found some way to entertain themselves. Some kids decided they were going to make condom balloons. I was sat on the opposite side of the stadium, so I didn't know what was going on at first, but eventually everyone saw it and began cheering. All of the teachers were outside with us, and their reactions were priceless. Some were laughing hysterically, some had to walk away to try to contain themselves, others tried to ignore it. Perhaps the best part was one of our deans, who had a reputation for being a bit of a hard ass, was struggling to keep it together. You could tell she wanted to remain stone cold, but couldn't help but laugh at the sight of a stretch condom floating gracefully through the air. My high school had a safe and sober grad night. Some kids thought it would be a great idea to take homemade edibles made by some kid's older brother. Flash forward a couple hours, and kids start to get violently sick, like changing color and puking on the floor sick. About 4 hours into what should have been a whole night, it was called off as we no longer can guarantee that this night is either safe or sober. All this after members of the administration had just finished praising us for being one of the best classes in recent memory. No pregnancies, relatively few scandalous parties, although we were the reason opaque water bottles were banned. The incident was hush-hush to save older brother's college baseball scholarship. Probably too late to the party, but here we go. Our school was in a border region, and across the border, they have a very uptight system, but in our country, it is much more relaxed. Our teacher was from across the border. One of my friends was wearing a cap, and the teacher wanted to be funny, so he asked if the cap was for religious reasons. Friend says yes. Teacher say, okay, then you better prove that you are circumcised. Rare in our country. Laughter ensues, and everybody thought that was that. Questions my friend who walks to the front of the class, drops his pants, and spins his dick before pulling his pants back up. Hilarity ensued, and the teacher was stuck between laughing and thinking he was going to get fired. They went to the principal to explain the incident. The only thing she asked was whether someone took pics. Camera phones were coming out that year. After don't fucking ever do that again, everybody could go on with their day. During middle school, it was the absolute peak of jackass popularity. Many of my friends took it upon ourselves to do whatever we thought the guys on Jackass would do. This meant tabletopping each other. One guy gets down behind an unsuspecting victim, and then another guy would push him over him. Dog piles at least 30 guys high. Nut shots via hand, foot, objects. Jumping off high ledges. Fucking with the lunchroom and classrooms in any way possible. But the worst is, when we got into tabletopping and then teabagging guys, Halo and Mountain Dew were our after-school hobbies. Naturally, it was all good and fun until one guy took my dare a little too seriously and pulled his pants down and teabagged one of our buddies with his bare nutsack. Middle school was magical. Guy didn't play our games much after that, but at least he never snitched. Back in high school, me and my ex were horny fucks. It got to the point where if we're both really horny, we would fuck out in public places. My school was not an exception to this. There was a spot in the auditorium on stage by the prop room that was a notorious fucking location amongst the students. One day after we both finished classes in the day, we decided to go there just as the bell schedule was happening. Fun tidbit, my high school played instrumentals to songs as the bell schedule, then playing a normal bell sound. We go at it hard, and when I come, I pull out and come all over the floor. I had tissues to clean up because that would be a dick move to not. I'm almost done cleaning up when we both hear the auditorium doors open. In a state of panic, my ex grabs my arm and tugs me towards the exit in the back, making me involuntarily throw the tissues towards the garbage cans. At least I hope I did. While getting out, I come face to face with one of the deans, also my gym teacher. At this point, I'm sweating bullets, but with him knowing me as a good student, he fist bumped me and let me carry on to the exit to leave the building. Till this day, I am still horrified and wondering if I ever threw those tissues out in the garbage. To any janitors from my old high school reading this and remember that time they had to clean tissues full of cum off the floor in 2012, just know I am sorry and I still think about it. TLDR, had sex in auditorium. Dean unknowingly fist bumped me for having sex.